Welcome to Overtime the Podcast, a show dedicated to all things watches, with a special love for micro brands and their affordable range. I'm your host Praka, and some of you might know me as Kinda Average Watches. Join me as we explore new releases, share tips on building your collection, and put in some overtime with hands-on reviews of the latest watches. Whether you're a bit of a pro or you're just getting into the hobby, this podcast will keep you entertained with great stories from the people in the industry, casual conversations, and guest hosts who bring their own unique perspectives. Let's get started. Welcome to Overtime the Podcast, proudly sponsored by Watchpoint. All right, now today, we've got something really special today. I have this watch that's in front of me. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful dress watch, and it is made by a I'm just going to introduce you in straight to, because I was like, how do I introduce you as? Do I introduce you as a watch photographer, a watch influencer, and now a watch brand owner, designer, everything all together once. So I'm going to introduce Chloe to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Praka. Thank you very much. Honestly, that's a very good question that people always ask. So, like a woman of many hats, I suppose. But actually, I am when I was at Geneva Watch Days a couple of weeks ago, we went to this Frederic Constant, the room, and then the lady there asked us, "So what are you? Are you press or are you just passionate?" And I was like, "There's no better way to kind of frame like me, just two words, just passionate." And that's kind of how I started my journey in the community. Like you said, photography being a key part of it. And I still do it probably with less intensity than I would like to, just because I don't have the time.
Hmm.
But also, I work with brands, strap brands, and yeah, now I'm launching my own watch brand. So, but at the end of the day, just passionate, nothing more than that.
I love how, you've definitely taken that passion to the next level. So really appreciate you joining us to podcast today. So look, before we sort of get into the real nitty gritty and learning more about you and the brand, we always start off with a wrist check. Now, what have you got on your wrist? Now, I know
So I
yeah. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, so I do have a piece unique of the collection that we will discuss later on, but I will keep this under the wraps for now. But I guess I'll just pass the ball over to you to do your wrist check because that's not as hush hush.
Thank you. Yeah, of course. Look, thanks again, Chloe, for sending this over. Ready in time for the podcast. It's always awesome to be able to handle the watch that we talk about. Of course, I'm wearing the Meridian in. So this is the green colorway. Now I don't want to butcher it, so I'm gonna ask you to tell me the colorways. Yeah, what is actually the colorway called?
Yeah, I'm honestly slightly disappointed given you've had a couple of Cantonese lessons as of late, but I'll allow it this time. So the one that you have on your wrist is the Beck, which is kind of like a limey green color. It's also kind of a really, really happy surprise and the best mistake I could have made in a way in terms of colorways. I've made a lot more mistakes than that. But this one is basically I set out to do something olive. Like a lot of olive watches have been done. Longines,
Kind
Vacheron
of, kind of,
Constantin.
kind of like my
Yeah,
t-shirt right now. Yeah, quite kind of
yeah, a
khaki.
little bit like that. So, like the reason was obviously we can talk about that later, but I have
Sure.
different kind of inspirations to the colors. But one of the reasons, like one of the colors I wanted was this shirt I wear to work all the time, and it's like my favorite like blouse or shirt kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I also had a dress that I got made when I was in Vietnam that was in that olive color. So I wanted to do that, and somehow the renders looked fine, and then
Mm.
when it came out, it actually ended up being more lime than olive. And I actually kind of wrote it off and I said, oh, I don't really like it. It's fine. And then I kind of showed it around to people and people said, that's really different. You should do something with that. And I'm open-minded, I'm democratic, and said,
Mm.
okay, I have 5 cases. I'll case this one. And now, like, yeah, before we hit record, I told Praka I really, really miss that watch. Like I really miss seeing that dial. But yeah, that's the one that you have on your wrist. The big it's kind of inspired by jade waters and kind of reminds me of the greenery that surrounded me when I was growing up in Hong Kong that very few know about. And it's sort of like a hidden gem without,
Mm.
you know, jade and hidden gem.
Yeah.
That's sort of the inspiration of that dial.
Yeah, it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. I mean, we'll go into everything that makes this dial because the color is just one thing, just one part, of course, is obviously the intricacies of the dial itself, right? The many different patterns on the dial. So we'll get into that. We'll get into that. So, but I've thoroughly enjoyed my time wearing this, and so has my wife. She's she's definitely enjoyed it on her wrist as well. So it's definitely one of those, I would say, almost like unisex model. It's fantastic.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. Look, let's just get into it then. I again, thank you so much. And I did a little preamble, of course, about
Hmm.
who you are. But give us a little, I guess, give us a little bit more of how you actually got into watches. What brought you in? Is this something that you've always liked? Is this something that came about later in life? And how that sort of landed you in that journey of, being watch passionate and I guess in this sort of photography space and to where you are now.
Yeah, I guess so. If we kind of go back a little bit in time, my first ever watch was an ice watch. So it's
Oh,
this really in your face orange. Like, so it's kind of if there's like a monster that just vomited orange, that's what it would look like. It's so orange. Ice watch that was for the World Cup. It's like the Netherlands kind of special edition type thing.
yeah.
It actually took me some time to even like find out, and it's got like blue, red, and white keepers as well as the orange ones.
There you
So it's
go. There.
really in your face. And I really liked it. I just got that as a gift. That's like the first one that I really remember. I think I must have been like 9 or 10. And then, but I didn't really like think too much of it. When I was sort of in secondary school towards the end, I just remember really being into like Lange's, basically everything that you can't afford, especially when I was in school. And kind of fast forward when I moved over to the UK, I kind of like invested a bit more time into like learning about watches, and I kind of got a bit more into it, so to speak. And fast forward when I got my first paycheck, that was when that whole PRX hype was on. And that was how I got my sort of first watch, which is the Quartz Ice Blue PRX in the 35 mil. I
Nice.
loved it. I wore it every single day. Like if you look at that bracelet, there's like got so many scratches on it. That's something they can definitely do better. But there's got so many scratches on it.
Oh yeah, scratch magnet.
And then, yeah, absolutely. And after that, I actually, because of my company's restructuring, or well, yeah, restructuring, I was out of a job. So I had a lot of time. So it's kind of like the age old quandary, which is a lot of time, but you got no money, or now or you have money and no time. So at that point, I felt like I had a bit of money, but no time. So, no, sorry, I had a bit of time, but the paychecks weren't coming in anymore.
Yeah.
So I just thought, well, what are the things that I have always wanted to do when I was working? I didn't have the time to do, which was go to watch meets and do more, watch related things. Because there were a lot of instances where I would commit to go to an event. It
Mm.
would start at like 6, 7, and then I work late, and then I say, sorry guys, I can't come anymore. And then that was like the perfect time. I actually had the time to go, went to RedBars and this and that. I went on the Scotch Watchers podcast. And from there, I just thought to myself, well, I've always really liked taking pictures of, landscapes. That's kind of like my bread and butter. I really love traveling. I take
Sure.
my camera everywhere I go. Why not just take pictures of watches as well? I love them anyways. And that just gives me kind of like more hands on time with watches that I normally won't get to spend time with, and a lot of times won't really get to see. And that's how I got in touch with some brands to ask them, do you have loaners? Do you have review pieces? And I kind of did that a bit more and started from there. And I got really drawn to just getting to know the people behind the brand. Like it just fascinates me. Like if I want to buy a strap, I could literally be talking to the person who owns the brand. If I'm looking, for example, Selton, I would say I'll consider, one of my good friends in the community as well. I could literally just message Leo like, why did you do this? Why did you put the logo like that? He probably is annoyed, of me by now, but like the fact that you have an in with this, or like I work with Formex as their concierge here in the UK, and I get to just message Marcus or Raf and ask, so why did you do that? Have you thought about, adding baguette diamonds to this other dial? This and that. Like there's just so much that you can do. And when you make a purchase, you're truly connecting with the brand, as opposed to like, I'm not trying to bash big box brands
Yeah, of
here, and I
course.
have big box brands. I got myself a little Rolex as like a gift when I had a good bonus, and I would never sell that thing. But to me, I know it doesn't make a difference to the brand whether I bought it or not, and
Hmm.
it won't move the needle in terms of like I have no stake or ability to influence design choices.
Hmm. Well, so
And
yeah, yeah,
everyone gets a different experience out of it. But for me, it just fascinates me how people come to land on a design choice or something that's daring. And that's how I sort of got into watches. And I think into is a bit of an understatement, but or we kind of like passed into like
yeah,
3 blocks ago
yeah.
type of thing.
Fell hard.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know who to blame really. I think a lot of people I've coined this term, which is like toxic enabling, especially all these WhatsApp groups, Facebook chats, and then sub WhatsApp groups. And I've met a lot of wonderful people along the way. And yeah, I mean the fact that you and I are talking, I think that's perfect testament to
Yeah.
that.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. It's awesome. It's yeah, it's quite a journey, and it's awesome
Hmm.
that you've what do you say? It's so true when you mention, like these, I guess, more independent brands, these smaller brands, the micro
Hmm.
brands, and the ability to reach out and the ability to just have a chat and ability to
Hmm.
whether that is, give constructive criticism or just or give
Hmm.
praise. The fact that you can do that and the fact that you know that you're gonna reach the intended person is
Hmm.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess moving from, where you are now, where you were taking
Hmm.
photos and meeting all these fantastic people and all that, at what point did you think, all right, I've reached this point now. I'm gonna get into making my own watch. Like, has this thought been around for a while now, or is this something more recent that you've just gone, all right, I'm gonna take this on and I'm gonna, keep going with this?
Yeah, because I kind of feel like I genuinely stumbled upon it. So I've always had this idea like, oh, I really like this watch, I really like that watch, but like, what's the perfect watch for me? What
Mm.
do I want to see on my wrist, and how do I kind of share that vision with other people? And I was actually having a conversation with, I think you know him as well, Kevin from Pedral Watches.
I think I've heard of him. Yes, yeah. I
Yeah,
don't think
yeah.
I've messaged him, but
So
yes. Hmm.
yeah, so I haven't actually met him in person yet, but I remember just messaging him, and he was gracious enough to sort of like get me to like learn more about his brand, his pieces, his design philosophy. And I told him, I would really love to make my watch one day and leave a kind of mark or legacy in the community. And because the community has shown so much love and support, it could be literally like, guys, I want to know where I can get a light box, or like who's the person to speak to if I want to get hands on with XYZ. I want to be able to say like these people kind of helped me on my journey. I want to create something for you know this group. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll do it one day, and I don't have the time now, and this and that. And I think his youngest one is like 2.
Mm.
And the fact that he's probably sleep deprived, he doesn't really have the time, and he's still doing what he's doing. He basically said, well, what are you waiting for? Like, just do it now. And I said, well, I'm not technical. I don't know how to do CAD design, and I don't really know anything apart from, hey, I've got mates. That's about it. Like, you know. And he said, you know what? I'll help you. Like, and I was actually on my way to a Cambridge RedBar meet,
Mm.
and I just sketched down like without thinking like why I did this, or what the intention behind this is. I just put pen to paper. It's like what I wanted to see and what represents me. Someone who's moved from Hong Kong
Mm.
to live in the UK, and now obviously like in terms of my watch collecting journey, very much like Western inspired, and the bulk of my connections are sort of in this part of the world. What represents me, what shows me. And I put pen to paper, and I think someone actually WhatsApped me the early sketches, which was I think a year exactly. And today is 28th of September as Praka and I are speaking. It's I think exactly a year ago that I WhatsApped this
Oh, wow.
image to Sam from Micro Indie Collective MIC. Shout out to Sam and Omar as well, and everyone in the MIC crew. But that was how it started. Like I just it was purely what did I want to see in a watch? What are the best elements in watches that I've really, really enjoyed? And I acknowledge the fact that design preferences and stylistic preferences evolve over time. But that was, and to this day, I think is the best representation of what I want to see in a watch
Hmm.
and what kind of embodies me and represents me. And that was how I started. A simple question of what are you waiting for? There's never a good time to do it. And I guess I've put myself in a bit of a financial sinkhole thanks to Kevin. Thanks, Kevin. But no, like I really appreciate the fact that I've got the nudge I needed. I had people in the community, mostly brand owners, and also, a bunch of different people that are well connected in the industry telling me, who are good people to speak to about certain things.
Mm.
Oh, like for example, I had a little bit of a pickle with movement sourcing, and then I asked, like, guys, do you know, is this a reasonable time? Is this a reasonable price? Like, there's been so many people that have helped me, and for that, I'm truly grateful. And also, I guess another kind of layer to that is basically, as a female watch collector, I've never felt like I'm being sort of pushed out of collecting circles or it's like a boys club or whatever.
Mm.
I've made amazing friends, yes, predominantly male,
Cool.
but that's never been a thing that I take issue
Mm.
with. But I admire a lot of watches, and I always felt like it was a bit disproportionate for what I personally wanted.
Mm.
And a lot of pieces end up being quite unwearable, despite the fact that they're incredibly beautiful. And I really wanted something that didn't compromise, a watch that was elegant in size, yet also serious in terms of craft and technically credible, and also very visually distinctive. And this is how I sort of landed with this design language
Mm.
and to fill in that gap, in my opinion, within the collecting community.
Yeah, fantastic. Really well put. And it's awesome to see how, yeah, like you said, you have that community really, getting behind you and helping out as well. And I think this is like pretty much a lot of brand owners that I've spoken to have said a very
Mm-hmm.
similar story as well. You know, it's not like you're cutting each other's grass,
Mm-hmm.
it's the big box brands. That's what
Yeah.
it is, and like you said, then they're not gonna, for them it's nothing, but for the micros and the indies, it makes such a
Mm-hmm.
big difference. So that's fantastic, fantastic. So you've now taken this leap, all right? You've taken this leap.
Mm-hmm.
You've gotten to the point where you've put everything down and you've done your sketches and you've started contacting all these people to really get your vision and your pen to paper and then paper to design, then prototyping, and then where we are now, which is I'm holding one
Mm-hmm.
of these awesome prototypes in your hands. How did you land on the design element? So I'm going to start with, of course, the first thing that pops out to me is the various gear shape patterns that are on the dial.
Mm-hmm.
And I say various because it's not, there's three in this BIC, there's three different gear shape patterns that I can see. So we've got the
Mm-hmm.
second subdial and the six, and then we've all got I guess the inner dial, and then you've got
Mm-hmm.
the outer section of the dial that's on the outside of the minute track as well, and each of them have their own version of gear shape.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you get to that? What made you go, that's what I like? I mean, is this based on your likeness for, like, I think you mentioned Lange, but I think there's also, a bit of Breguet and a bit of,
Mm-hmm.
there's many very classical sort of
Yeah.
watchmaking design from what I can
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, from myself as a collector, I've always admired the kind of vintage pocket watches, that sort of aesthetic. As you can see, that's why, well, there's also a variant, the Lamb, which has the Roman numerals,
Mm.
and you can see that like at the sub seconds at the 6 o'clock. That really harks back to that pocket watch sort of architecture, and the idea of it being hand wound as well is
Mm.
something that I was very, very precise, or like I was very particular about that. it being a hand wound movement because I think it has this like romanticism of slowing down time and then kind of emphasizing these small little rituals that you have in your day, which is like me waking. Okay, to be fair, I wake up very early in the morning, but on my way walking, like the 5 steps that I take from the bedroom to the bathroom, I do wind my watch in those five steps, and also my appreciation for traditional crafts like guilloche, and this is obviously CNC guilloche,
Mm.
or like even enameling, that sort of things. And I also love, as you rightly pointed out, the hallmarks of maisons such as Breguet, and also the early kind of more so, I guess, neo vintage Chrono Swiss,
Mm.
Lange being one of them as well, or Glashütte Original, like all these kind of brands. And I realized a lot of those watches that are in, let's say, like early 2000s or even like before that, a lot of them are, black, white, champagne dials. There's nothing wrong with them, but beautiful, but it also feels a bit more like predictable and a bit
Mm.
more restrained in terms of what they can really do. And that's, back to the point of, you know, some of these independents, not even just micros, but independents and micro brands being more daring, trying something new, but also respecting what watchmaking should really be. Like there are playful brands, right? There are brands that are, let's say, sub £200,
Mm.
and it's fun. But I also wanted something that's horologically serious,
Mm.
and this is how I come to this. And as I said, I named this collection, the debut collection, the Meridian, because to me, it kind of encapsulates me, where East sort of meets the West, where old meets new.
Mm.
And again, I'm based in London, so I'm actually very close to where the Prime Meridian is, like driving there probably is going to take me like 10 minutes. So where it almost feel like that poetic sense of the beginning of time
Mm.
itself. So this is how I combined all those elements and I came to this. And as I mentioned, there's two dial variants in that sense. Like there's three within the collections, which is the big Lan and Tsing. And so the big and the Tsing, which is the ice blue one and the limey green one that you have
Mm.
on your wrist at the moment, those have the Chinese kind of text on the dial. And as you can notice, there are three different guilloches. And funnily enough, and I mean, someone who is more well versed artistically will be able to tell you why, but somehow the Chinese script doesn't work as well in kind of really dark and saturated colors. Which is why the Lan, which is the purple one, I've actually opted for Roman numerals.
Mm.
And to me, this is how I can kind of get that balance between staying true to who I am, but at the same time also understanding that, the Roman numerals kind of gives it more of a touch with the vintage pocket watches that I mentioned.
Mm. Mm.
And there's also different guilloche patterns across these two dial, like across the Roman numeral variants as well as the Chinese numeral variants, such that actually the Chinese dial variants kind of it feels a bit more like sunray where it pushes out, whereas the Roman numerals, because on the outside it kind of has that fish scale kind of CNC gear shape pattern,
Mm.
it feels a bit more toned down in a sense that it brings the dial back a little bit more to the center.
Mm. It's beautiful. I mean, I'm looking, obviously I have Bic in front of me and I'm looking at it now as
Mm-hmm.
Chloe's explaining it to me and it's fantastic. It does make sense. I mean, I had to do a bit of homework, brushing up a little bit before the podcast started, of course. And so they got this in the six in the six the small seconds, you've got the soleil sunburst. I think that's what it
Mm-hmm.
is. And then we've
Yeah.
got in the mid in the center of the dials you've got the finker. Is that what it's called? The finkel,
The
flink,
flunk.
flunk.
Yeah.
See, yeah,
Yeah.
that's how good my French is. A flunk. And then on the outer dial, that I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but it's beautiful in any case. But it just
Yeah.
goes to show how much I think how much you've put into just the dial itself. I mean, you know, the fact that you've gone into such work to really get all these different facets on just on a dial, and I
Hmm.
don't mean it just on a dial, but just on one surface on it's incredible. And I'm just looking, obviously let's go out of the dial now. I'm looking at the handsets as well. The handsets are elegant. Syringe handsets. Is that what do we call them?
Admittedly, I don't have them because to me, I basically wanted the hands to look like kind of like in ancient China, particularly in the Ming Dynasty,
Mm.
when you have those arrows. I actually had like a very specific image that I had, but I can't find it anymore.
Oh,
But that
okay.
was kind of how like I came to land on that.
Yeah,
It's kind of I don't know if it's got bow launched or arrow. I don't remember exactly what it's
right.
called,
Yeah.
but that was kind of how I came to choose this. Yeah, like the shape of the hands because they kind of remind me of like arrows.
Yeah, yeah, and also this
Um,
in the second hand as well, like the
mhm.
small second hands really looks almost like some sort of weaponry of sorts as well.
Yeah.
And it looks really cool. And there's so much going on in the dial, yet it's very easy to tell the time. I know it sounds stupid, but sometimes when there's a lot going on in a watch, it can take away from the very aspect of why do we wear a watch, which is to tell time. Of
Hmm.
course, we want it to be beautiful,
Yeah.
but it's very easy to read. Of course, you've got the chapter ring with the minute track, very 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 clearly labeled as well. Even though it's subtle, it's just like dots all around, but it's fantastic. I think that's a really well done piece and really underrated factor in this watch, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Let's move on from that. Let's move on from this. I want to talk about the case design itself.
Hmm.
So you've chosen the bezel, of course,
Hmm.
which is, geez, I'm blanking right now. It's on the top of my head. This
A
is a
coinage.
coin edge bezel. Okay, so you've got a coin edge
Hmm.
bezel, and that also carries through to the case back as well. Now, this is not
Hmm.
something that I've seen in many watches, if any, in the flesh at least. I have seen one or
Hmm.
two. I think after I first received it, I went on Googling Sprint to try and figure out other watches that had
Yeah.
these, but I was like, there's not many. And you had the same design on the case back as well. Where did this come from? Or how, what made you go, this is what I want?
So actually, when I sign on to the job that I currently have,
Mm.
I kind of went into a little bit of a rabbit hole in terms of looking at new vintage Chrono Swiss. And I actually do own a new vintage Chrono Swiss from the early 2000s, which is the Régulateur in the M version. So it's actually the smaller version, 34 millimeters across. And I somehow really, really like that design language. I kind of call it like a coin edge sandwich because the Breguet one is
Yeah,
like it's coinage, but it's in the center portion of the case, whereas the center portion of my case is brushed.
yeah,
So I kind of took elements from that, and to me, like an onion crown also perfectly embodies
yeah.
kind of classical watchmaking. Like a lot of even modern watches, like Fears, like Laurent Ferrier,
Mm.
like all these brands, they just really speak to me. Like you can ask people when I was at Geneva Watch Days, like I would see a watch, it's got a onion crown. I was like, oh yes, an onion crown. Like I would literally just like go, I was like, yeah, that's a beautiful onion crown.
Yeah,
And that's how I kind of landed on that case architecture. I've refined it. Obviously, that watch is from the early 2000s.
yeah.
A lot has changed since then. And I yeah, I just basically try to bring a bit more of a modern and more refined take to it, make sure that I'm doing, polishing on the kind of correct surfaces, brushing on the others,
Mm.
and make it look, some people criticized a lot of the rendering, saying it's very like blocky and this and that. And I was like, guys, I know, like maybe I don't have the best renderings, but trust me, like get the watch on your hand. And again, I don't know what I've done. Like I know a lot of people, they would have like very conscious design decisions. I look at something and I think that doesn't look right. Change this, change that. And that's so it's not very scientific in how I've landed on the way the lugs curve, but perhaps you might realize this. I've got pretty small wrists. I think it should be like 15 to 15 and a half centimeters.
Sure.
But when I wear this watch, which is 36 and a half across, 20 millimeters lug width, and 43 and a half lug to lug, 9.5 thick, including the crystal, because it's a flat crystal, it just there's no overhang. It just wears perfectly. And I think you also know Sophie, Sophie's Watch World. Shout out to Sophie. She's got tiny, tiny wrists, and the watch looks really good on her. You don't feel like there's an overhang, but you can also speak to someone like David, who's Smooth Bezel on Instagram, and he's got gigantic wrists. Might I even say like double the size of Sophie's wrist, but it doesn't feel too small. And
Mm.
again, I don't exactly know what it is that I've done with the lugs, but I've just like kind of tweaked it a lot. Like I think the designer I was working with was actually a bit annoyed to the point, but it just works with smaller and bigger wrists. And obviously, with this whole trend of downsizing, I think it just kind of hits a sweet spot in terms of sizing
Mm.
for a lot of people.
Yep, yep. No, well said. I mean, I have smaller than average wrists as well, things like 6.4 inch, whatever. What's that convert to in centimeters? It's weird because I'm Australian and I'm Australia.
Mm-hmm.
However, for some reason, wrist size I always talk in inches as opposed to centimeters, like like everything else we say in centimeters. So anyway, 16.25 centimeters or around there. So yeah, our wrist size isn't that far away. And it wears really well. My wife, who had it on her wrist as well, again, slightly smaller, again, wears really well. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like it's the lugs, how do you say? The lugs sort of obviously downturn, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't downturn in such a, I mean, they downturn enough that it definitely looks super, elegant in that way. However, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel like it downturns in so much that it hugs your wrist in a, how do you say it? In a way that you might get, it might be
To dig
occlusive.
into your
Yeah,
wrist.
exactly, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's and that's sort of at the end of the lugs. It feels like a nice little
Yeah.
rounded taper. So that's
Yeah.
a very good choice there. Very good choice. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people have sort of given, and again, people always have their opinions, and they said,
Sure.
"Oh, can you actually make the lugs taper, or can you actually brush the top of the lugs, or can you make the case bigger?" Like, there's a lot of these things, and I definitely listen to everything, and I filter through like what I think are things I can refine, and then I kind of put, all the others into like a separate, I guess, basket where it's like, okay, maybe it's something I could revisit in the future. And that's how I've kind of landed on this. Like I thought about narrowing the lugs, but then I know a lot of people will complain that it's not 20 and it can't be a strap monster. So I've decided to keep it at 20. And at the end of the day, like I need to make something, especially for the debut collection, to be something I can wear.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
this is exactly why the sizing is perfect. And like even our friend CJ, he said he's not
Yeah.
normally a fan of watches that have very angular, like straight lugs, but somehow this also works for him.
Yeah.
So I think it really is, as much as my photographer Danny, shout out to Danny at DBTSANG, he's done a great job with the photos, but it is something that you really have to like put on the wrist and get a feel for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, well said, well said. I mean, I had the joy of not really knowing what the
Mm-hmm.
watch was gonna be before I opened it up. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a very pleasant surprise. I was like, oh, this is fancy. Like
Mm.
the only things I've seen before was
Yeah.
the teasers on Instagram. So fantastic, fantastic. That's cool to see. All right, let's obviously I want to talk a little bit about we you spoke about it before about
Mm-hmm.
manual wind movement. You consciously chose a manual wind movement because you wanted that, that pause, that slowing down, taking your
Yeah.
time to be able to. It's a ritual, and that's something that is obviously very important to you in your first watch. What made you go with the I guess the Solida 261-M, which is a fantastic movement, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. What made you go with the Salida movement as opposed
So
to I don't know, any other manual one movement?
so I decided to go for the Salita SW261-1M.
Yeah.
I've kind of perfected saying it's a bit of a mouthful, but that movement, because first of all, I want to keep the watch thin. The CNC gear shade dial is not a thin dial, so to speak. So I wanted to keep the watch thin. Under 10 millimeters was like that was a must.
Sure.
Also because I personally have the issue of wearing watches that just feel a bit too thick, has overhangs and that, and like it just as much as I love the watch, it just doesn't get a lot of wrist time over time.
If you're into microbrand and independent watches, which you clearly are as you're listening to this podcast, you gotta check out Watchpoint. Watchpoint is the newest destination in Melbourne, Australia for microbrand and independent watches. But it's more than just a brick and mortar store, it's a hub for watch enthusiasts. Come check out brands such as HZ, Bazel, Second Hour, RZE, and Montbray, and other exciting watches you won't find anywhere else. Watchpoint is also your go-to website for buying said watches, exploring microbrand profiles, discovering new releases, and staying informed with editorials, industry insights, and buying guides. So if you're keen on trying out your favorite microbrand watches, drop into Shop 304, Level 3, the Block Arcade on Collins Street, or visit watchpoint.com.au or check them out on Instagram at watchpoint.au for more.
So that was the reason. You would also notice that there's another variant, which is the SW216. And that one actually, the main difference is the center pinion and that of the subseconds. And for a smaller case, I had to opt for this movement because it looks more proportional, and which is why I didn't opt for the other one, even though I was advised to try those other movements. So if anything, I could also save myself some money if I went for the other one, because that one's actually more of it's being made every year as opposed to the one that I'm currently going for.
Mm.
So it is a conscious decision. And I've also been asked, like, why don't you go for an automatic movement? But there are just a few things, like back to the point that, I take criticism, I take feedback, but these were the things that I just decided not to compromise on. And in terms of finishing, I've also gone a bit more like bare bones, because I think the movement itself is already a nice looking movement. Yeah, it might be a little bit bland, I guess. I thought about, engraving the base plate, but I don't really want it to affect the price too much because it is the debut collection. And at the end of the day, the dial is very, very busy as it is, as you have mentioned. Doesn't really affect legibility, but it's a very busy dial. And I don't know whether you've had the opportunity to look at it under the sun, or if you've seen the sun at all in the last couple of days, but it's glorious under the sun.
Oh yeah.
If I can toot my own horn a little bit there, but it's especially the dial you have, it looks amazing under the sun. And so I just didn't really want to crowd out the whole watch by making something like really busy at the back as well. And that's why I've kind of opted for this finishing. I think it's gonna be slightly different for the production version, and the accuracy is going to also be stepped up as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted something that was, like I said, horologically serious, had that modern precision, but you still get that classic feel to it.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Okay. I didn't know. I mean, I think I'm probably more used to the other. Did you say 216? Is that the other variant of the
Yeah.
Slater? Yeah, I
So
think.
that's more commonly used.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of wearing it in the sun yesterday. It was a beautiful
Mm-hmm.
sunny day in Perth, and it was,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it was perfect. I actually have a, I think I did send you the photos. I'm not sure if I did. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
had some photos by the flowers, and it was
Mm-hmm.
this beautiful day. So yes, I did enjoy it in the sun, and
Yeah.
it is gorgeous in the sun. It just comes alive, and because you have the three different gear shape patterns, each of them just pop the light off in different directions. Yeah, I don't know if I'm quite explaining it quite well. I'm not an artist with my words, but yes, each of them have its own sort of way it comes alive. So yeah, very cool to see. Very cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, cool. Awesome. All right. Look, we've talked about all the things that have when we've talked about the watch head itself. Now, I was pleasantly surprised when I pulled out the watch and I saw the strap. The strap, it's beautiful Epsom leather,
Mm-hmm.
and I flipped it around and I saw, oh, has no bounce. I know this. I know
Mm-hmm.
this brand, and it's got a bit of a connection to yourself, I'm guessing. So has no bounds,
Yeah.
Hong Kong based brand. I actually spoke to Christine not
Mm-hmm.
not too long ago with Leo. So was it a natural fit to go with Has No Bounds for your, I guess, for your debut model?
Is that no pun intended?
Yeah.
Natural fit. So yeah, obviously, just like any other watch brand, I kind of evaluated my options and this and that, and Chris did feel like a natural fit, like you said. I'm friends with Chris and
Mm,
Leo, and to me, it was also about yeah, what embodies me. Like that question has been like central to this whole design process and all the choices made.
mm,
So Chris is the Hong Kong part of the story. It is supporting a friend. It is working with a friend and with genuine good people that, yeah, I just enjoy their company. And I also want to see the brand grow. And I mean, obviously, it has to be good quality.
mm,
I know a lot of people did say, like, go for a cheap strap, something that you can get, like five US dollars
mm,
wholesale and call it a day. People are going to swap it out, but I think people have been surprised by the very specific straps, the Epsom straps that I've gone with for different dial variants. So much so that I do hope that when they get it on their wrist, they wouldn't necessarily want to swap it out to other straps. Like, obviously, feel free. Like, funnily enough, the one that you had on when I was in Geneva, I put it on like a white rubber strap that Omar from MIC had, and
mm.
it looked great. I can send you a picture later on, and I was like, you know what? That is actually really cool. And
Summer
so
combo.
yeah, so that's the reason why. Like I really just want to work with good partners, people that I think I can rely on, people that will kind of help me grow as well, give me guidance. And obviously they have been incredible. Like, and this was, I think it was like towards the tail end of the Joy launch and those
Mm.
like 3, 4 days. I was walking home and I said, "Oh, I actually have a question." And they just said, "Well, why don't you just call us?" And then I was just walking and then they talked with me for like an hour and I didn't want to stop the conversation. So I actually stood at the lobby of my building for like 25 minutes because I thought the conversation was ending, but I keep having more questions. And it was like 2 a.m. in Hong Kong. But they were just so unbelievably helpful. And the fact that, again, it's back to that whole small brands, you have that direct line.
Mm.
I love that. And yeah, so that's how I chose to work with Chris. And in fact, I told her these are the three colors I've decided to go with. I have an idea of what I want to do in terms of straps. I want it to be Epsom leather, but surprise me because you've got, a way with colors.
Yeah.
So, and she did, and she came in clutch. Like she came up with the best options possible for those three straps. And that was the Hong Kong bit of the story. And to bring back to where I am right now, which is in the UK, I also wanted to work with a partner where I felt like they would be able to help me grow. They would be able to guide me. And that's also why, in terms of assembly and quality control, I've decided to go with Horologium, which
Mm.
is UK based in Maidenhead. Funny enough, they actually took over the old Christopher Ward headquarters in Maidenhead. And to me, it's just because I want the whole process from the point of sale, from pre-ordering to people getting it on their hands, and if anything's wrong, God forbid, things happen, that they can have that peace of mind. And Horologium can give me that, even if it's at a higher cost for myself and probably slightly, at a price premium for the consumer or the customer, it's worth it because that also means you have something and someone that you think you believe you can rely on. And that's sort of how I decided to work with, the two main partners that create the watch.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, Horologium, I think I've heard of them before. Is it there is another
Studio
micro
Underdog
brand.
was
That's it,
probably a
Studio
big one.
Underdog. Yes, that's it. The
Yeah.
biggest, yeah, probably the biggest one, arguably. And then
Hmm.
there is another brand as well. I think it's a Scottish brand. Anyway, I can't remember off the top of my head. But that's awesome to
Hmm.
see that you really you've got both elements of your I guess your story right
Hmm.
in this piece. And yeah, he said even if it comes at a slight premium, it's what you've
Hmm.
chosen
Hmm.
to deliver to the people. So that's awesome. That's fantastic. I would turn around and obviously there's text on the case back on the because there is a display
Hmm.
case back, of course, so you can see the beautiful movement,
Yeah.
but then you can, of course, it says London on there. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. There's going to be it's going to be a couple of minor changes in that case back along
Yeah.
with the watch itself. Do you want to run me through what those little changes are going to be?
Yeah, so I actually, after I did that, because basically I had a supplier, which now I'm actually switching
Mm,
because, again, I didn't want to compromise, even if it meant a slightly higher cost to myself. And obviously, parts of it will be passed on to the consumer, but I wanted to make sure that it was product I could stand by and be proud of. And so the text will be minim, meridian, and then it would actually show 5 atmospheres, so 5 ATM, because someone was like, actually, what is this? I was like, you can wash your hands with it. Don't worry about that.
oh,
And I
nice.
realized I haven't actually told anyone anywhere. So that is why that's important, and also assembled in Great Britain.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm going to be orienting the caseback text for the debut collection, the three colors. And to the point of, like, something I could stand by. A lot of people talk about how they put their name on the watch.
Yep.
Same for like Fears, for example, for Nicholas,
Hmm.
like the Fear family, that's part of his heritage.
Yeah.
Actually, the logo that you can see on the dial,
Hmm.
that's my name. So that's actually the last character of my Chinese name,
Oh,
and the anglicized version of it is Min. And I've decided to name the brand Minim. Apart from, I don't know if you know classical music, but Minim is a
yeah.
note.
Yeah.
It's like time
Yes.
value of two crochets. So to me, it gives that kind of pause because it's a
Hmm.
bit of a longer note. It's not like a crochet, sorry, where you just stop. It's a bit of a longer note. Minim's obviously, it also kind of speaks to minimalistic, and also it's a palindrome, so it's a bit of a happy coincidence that all kind of ties in. And I've been told that my logo actually looks like a certain different independent slash micro brands logo, but I was like, you know what, guys, blame my parents. That's the name they
Yeah.
gave me, so which I've decided to use as the brand's logo. But
Yeah.
that's also how, like, people might not realize this, but I'm putting my name in there.
Hmm.
So I want this to be something I'm proud of, and I don't want to compromise. Like, there are certain areas that I will have to compromise,
Hmm.
but this is not one of the areas that I've decided to compromise on, because quality is of, utmost importance to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's awesome. I didn't realize that that was I guess that was your name that's on that
Yeah,
medallion on the logo, the
it has
12.
a meaning as well, actually. So I was born in autumn, and the word actually isn't used. I don't think I've actually ever come across anyone in the Chinese speaking world that has this character in their name, but it actually means the sky and also autumn, which
Mm.
was, like the season that I was born in, and which is also why I've gone with the ice blue version. The thing, apart from it kind of like reflecting the crystalline skies, kind of like a glacial kind of clarity,
Mm.
but it also emulates the brand name itself, Sky. The story behind that is actually, I never intended to create this as part of the launch kind of series. And I was like, my favorite color is blue. This is mine. It's a piece unique. Done. And then I made the mistake of showing it to other people, and they were like, you know what? If you make that, I want that. And I was like, guys, I'm not going to make it. And
Yeah.
then fast forward 3 days later, just like anyone would, I succumbed to peer pressure, and I decided, and I messaged the people that messaged me after that evening. I said, yes, I will make it.
Awesome.
And this is why I've landed on that ice blue color, as well.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I think whoever peer pressured you did a good job because the blue is fantastic. I did show it to my wife and she said, I think that's my favorite color. So there you go. You
Mm.
did well. Did well. Ah, awesome. And I guess in terms of color as well, while we're all peer pressuring, I love my color, but I also love the little
Mm-hmm.
monotones as well. So I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how it would look in a nice some sort of dark gray or something. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just putting it out there. You do
Yeah.
you, but I'm just putting it out there. Awesome, cool. Let's talk. Price. Where can we get it? When is it coming out? And everything else.
No. So, as we mentioned just now, we are on the 28th of September right now. The plan is that I will be dropping this on the 21st of October, which is, I believe, a Tuesday.
Hmm.
And that's when the images will be available for the public, and public pre-order goes live on the 25th of October, which is a Saturday, and it will run till 9th of November, which is a Sunday. And basically the three colors will be available throughout that pre-order period. The Ding, Big, and Lan will be available, and I'll fulfill all those orders. I don't actually have a concrete timeline, but I'm really hoping for all the parts to be in the UK, ready for assembly either late this year, like really,
Mm.
really late this year, or very, very early next year. And hopefully it'll be comfortably and easily on the wrists of, customers by absolutely the latest. I'm hopefully January, but obviously
Mm.
I don't want to box myself in. There's a lot of things that's not within my control.
Yeah.
But the whole reason, which before we hit record, I've mentioned to Praka, is that I have committed financially to this already because I don't want there to be 6 month or 8 month wait until people get it on the wrist. I myself am also a slave of my mind. I can't wait. I am impatient, and I know that feeling. And I don't want people to have to, as much as it's a really, really first world problem to have, suffer through that pain of waiting for that watch. So that's the plan. And I really hope people, understand the kind of love that I've poured into this project. And like I said, I kind of girl mathed it before I actually did the math, which was I said, I'll do it below £1,000. And then I did the math and I was like, God, this is absolute insanity. But you know what? I am a woman of my word. I will stick to it. So the pre-order pricing will be £999 in the UK, and that would be including VAT. And the rest of the world would also be £999, but people will have to be in charge of their own, whatever they would do with import charges and all of that. And in terms of US, because obviously they are, encountering their very unique set of issues. So I'm still working through pricing, but tentatively we're sort of looking at 1,199 US dollars, and that would be including the tariff charges.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
when he told me the price, I was like, what? That's you are getting a lot of watch here for your money. Just the design itself and the build quality. I mean, I'm holding a
Mm-hmm.
prototype now, and everyone says prototypes, it's always going to be better than production, always going to be better than production. But this is very good. Just holding in, man. It's
Mm-hmm.
built really well, rock solid. Yeah, rock solid. Can you say that for a dress watch? Yeah, I guess you can. Everyone talks
Mm-hmm.
about dive watches that way, as though it's like, it's built solid, but it really is. And yeah, look, it's a fantastic watch, and I think the price is, like you say, maybe a little, maybe maybe a little bit, what do you call it, short changed yourself. However, glad that you're sticking with it to give the people what they want to get for the pre-orders.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So as usual, I'll be leaving links to all the show notes, and sorry, in the show notes, I'll be leaving all the links, and this episode will drop before before it's
Mm-hmm.
time for the public to order, so everyone can
Mm-hmm.
have a listen, and I guess, yeah, understand the meaning behind this design and what it means to Chloe, and to put what really embodies her, into a watch, and
Mm-hmm.
also everything else and everyone else that has helped along the way
Mm-hmm.
throughout the journey.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that's sort of the end of the question, the Q&A part of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'll move on to the something interesting. Now I did
Yeah.
I did message you and say usually I just sort of wing this pretty late on. Did you have a
Yeah.
chance to have a look at something before you started?
Yeah, the thing is, I am like, for those that know me, I'm very passionate about food. So I guess I kind of did want to bring up like this one restaurant, which is very, very convenient, that I've forgotten the name of, even though it was actually really, really good. And I promise you, it was genuinely really, really good.
Okay.
But I actually wanted to possibly talk about my favorite restaurant that I've actually been to as of late. I actually found it. It's called Surabaya by Kin Kin, and it's actually, I think it was, must have been last summer. Yeah. Well, actually, we're actually moving out of summer. So the summer before last, like summer of 2024, it was my mum's birthday, and we actually picked this restaurant. It's
I
Srabua
I
by Kin
found it.
Kin.
Yeah. Is it
Yeah.
in
And it's in
Thailand?
Bangkok.
Bangkok. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So actually my family's, well, my parents actually they have a place in Bangkok now as well, which they do spend kind of like a quarter of the year in, because we don't actually live in Hong Kong permanently anymore. I've only got extended family there, but that's probably like the most interesting and revolutionary dining experience I've ever had. So much so that actually the end course is a bit of a fun game. So the idea is that I think one of the chefs is Danish and the other one is Thai. So they kind of bring elements from both. But
Hmm.
obviously it's very Thai in nature, but there's also like Nordic bits and pieces here and there. And one thing was actually they would create these fake pieces of food. So for example, we had one which was star anise, and then there were a bunch of star anise, and then like there were three of them because there's three of us eating at the table, three of them which were chocolate, which were made to look like star anise. And then there was one basket of like red chilies, and then three of them were like red chilies that looked like red chilies but were actually chocolates.
Wow, cool,
And then there was
cool.
another one which of like cinnamon sticks, one of actually stones. And my parents were so convinced that those were the chocolates, and they made me chew it, and I took it up, and it was a pebble. And then there was one which was actually a Lego set, and then they did kind of like jelly like, so they had like panda leaves, and they made a really green little block of like jelly, but it
Yeah,
actually looks like a Lego block. And yeah, it's just a really interesting dining experience, and I think it's very memorable. And for me, like obviously, I live in London, so
mm.
you know nothing short of overpriced food, and in my opinion, very kind of pretentious fine dining. But this was, in my opinion, actually pretty well worth the money. I think it was roughly like 100 quid a person, and which is, you know, by no means cheap, but for what they offered, it was genuinely like an experience. And for me, everything is about the experience, the kind of value for money as well. And this kind of
Yeah,
encapsulates both. It was a wonderful experience. And if you're, I know like Australia is still far from basically the rest of the world, but
yeah,
if you do find yourself and the missus and the rest of the family, because I think the Lego set would be pretty fun for your kids,
yeah, for sure.
in Bangkok, I would definitely recommend going there. And the thing is, we started the dinner, and there was one singular guy next to us that was finishing up his dinner, and he was doing that Lego set. And then, yeah, like my family and I have this thing of like we would see someone sitting on a street, and then we would be like, okay, so who are they? You know, what do they do? And we start like coming up with scenarios and stories of who they are. And then we were like, you don't know, maybe he's like a man child, he never, you know, grew out of his shell and this and that, and then that's why he brings a Lego set when he goes to have dinner. Like you don't know, like this was a story. And then we were like, oh, actually we got served that same Lego set.
That's so cool.
um yeah, so
That's
that was
some,
really really cool because I had no idea what to expect for the whole dinner, and like basically every course I was absolutely wowed.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I've heard a lot about Bangkok and their sort of restaurant scenes. I heard they're like,
Mm,
sort of really leveled up. I mean, I don't, I guess I'm not really a big, I don't really go out for much fine dining food. However, I have watched a couple of shows. I think it was like, what's that show? Somebody Feed Phil. Have you seen that show?
yeah, yeah,
I love that show. I love
yeah,
that
yeah.
man. He's such a nice guy, and he's just got so as in he's just such a lovely man. And he goes to all these cool places. Anyway, and I think he went to some place in Bangkok, and he said it looked really
Mm,
cool. And then after that, I started Googling, and apparently there's like the concentration of whether it's Michelin stars or something close to restaurants in Bangkok is actually crazy. How many cool stuff's
yeah.
out there. So yeah,
Yeah, the
that's
food scene is great, and I think the bar is pretty high because I grew up in Hong Kong, where we're like no short of amazing food, whether it be fine dining, street food. Like across the board. Like it's just really, really good food. And for me, like every now and then I like to try these experiences, but sometimes in Hong Kong I also just like to go to like a local like noodle shop and
Oh yeah.
pay, I don't know, £3, £4, and then you've got like a massive bowl of noodles, and that's kind of sometimes all you need.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I yeah, love
Yeah.
that. I love that. I love the good roast meats.
Mm,
I'm a sucker for that.
mm,
Roast pork and everything else as well. Fantastic. Well, I was going to talk about a TV show, but boring. Let's talk about food. I love food as well. Probably, I'm saying I'm super, yeah, I'm passionate. Yeah, I guess I am. I guess come
mm,
from sort of an Asian background as well. Always joke whenever we head out to food, like get somewhere with my parents. If my mum says it's not bad, that means the food's really
mm.
good because
Yes, yes, I can 100% relate to that. 100%. Yeah. Like when you said that, I mean, I don't really have that issue with my mum
yeah.
because I think she's kind of grown out of that, and she actually tries to like compliment or like give credit where credit's due. And then there's my grandma where she would kind of always just dismiss something and say, I can make that
Yeah, I
myself.
could make
So
that
when she
better.
doesn't say any, yeah, when she doesn't say anything, that means
It's good.
like, yeah, she's speechless basically. And that's why my mum's also stopped making things that she could try, she could make herself, and make her things that she's never gonna make, and she would be impressed. And like when she doesn't say when she says it's not bad, that means it's bloody
Yeah.
amazing. That's what it means.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Or if it's a dessert, well, it's good. It's not so sweet. That's their way of saying, oh
yeah.
yeah, it's
Or they look at it like kind of judgmentally and like kind of nodding. That's like it's a nod of approval
yeah.
of anything. I've seen that.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that as the little traits, the little traits. No, when
Yeah.
you talked about like sort of Asian fine dining, I guess I went to this restaurant when I was away for work. It was called Hapolati. Now, it's sort of like a
Hmm.
Asian fusion, and I think the menu just sort of changes as well. Like when I was there, the menu seemed very much. I had a bit of Thai, had a bit of Korean, had a bit of sort of
Mm.
everything, and it was fantastic. And they also paired wines with it as well. So at each course. So by the time we sort of got to the end, I was like, oh God, this is I'm getting a bit woozy here. But anyway, it was really cool. And that just when you just explained that reminded me nothing as Hattie said, really super cool experience. But I did, I'm not a big wine drinker myself, but having someone coming up to me and
Mm.
saying, this is why we think this wine pairs along with this. And to be honest, when you're looking at sort of,
Hmm.
I guess more Asian dishes, curries
Mm.
or noodles or whatever it is, you just like, how do you, for me, maybe I'm old school. I'm always thinking like wines is, your meat and veg and that kind of stuff, you're
Mm.
pairing meat with wine. But somehow it worked. It all made
Yeah.
sense. So anyway, I'm pretty sure it's
Yeah.
Hapilati. So I 99% sure it is. And
Yeah.
if it isn't, then I will put the right link to the right place. So if anyone's in Oslo, they can
Mm.
go and check it out.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, and same with you. Yeah, if you're in Oslo, you should go check it out. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But anyway, I'll make sure
Yeah.
to write the link. Yeah, which is again an interesting place to go get Asian food in Oslo of all places.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I've been to Oslo, well, technically not Oslo, but we flew into Oslo and then we immediately left
Yeah.
the Oslo region because I don't know, like for me, particularly Norway and Sweden, not necessarily the Nordics in general, but the nature bits kind of fascinate me a lot
Oh
more.
yeah, fantastic. Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's unreal, and it's like it's not like a fever dream, but like it's like to me, my experience going to Norway and then crossing over the border to Sweden, it wasn't even what you would think of, not like the fjords and like the lakes necessarily, but it's just the most magical experience I've ever had. It was like I went from white lights in an office, and then I flew the next day, spent less than 50 hours in those two countries, and then came back and I was like, what have I done? Like, why am I back in an office with white lights again?
yeah.
And those 50 hours were like the most magical 50 hours, like the most beautiful things I've seen. And I saw an elk. So for
Yeah.
me, like Norway always has a special place in my heart.
For sure, for sure. No, it is a beautiful
Yeah,
country.
yeah.
I've had most of the times, unfortunately, I have been in the cities. However, I've managed to sneak out and check out
Mm,
the bit of the countryside, bit of the snow, a little bit of the mountains and stuff. So yeah, it is a
mm,
gorgeous country. So, but anyway, I will leave that link in the
yeah.
show notes if anyone is interested, wants to check out that place. So I've put it in. It's Strabua by Kinkin and Hapaladi.
Mm,
Check that in. So. There you go. That's it. That's us today. Thank you so much, Chloe. I hope you had as much fun as I did discussing the
hmm
Meridian. And yeah, and of course, I'm going to leave all the links in the show notes so everyone can check it out.
hmm
But again, yeah, thank you so much. And thanks for sending this for me to check out. And I'll send it off to the next person. And
hmm
very soon I'll be back with you so you can pair it with your dress.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. But I'm genuinely like, I'm so happy when people receive it and it's like, oh, this is great. I really enjoy it. And yeah, that's kind of like it helps with the stress, you know, it's like that little bit of whatever medication needed to like tamper that stress level to a little bit lower. And it means a lot. Like I'm really glad you had me on and I've really enjoyed this last hour and a bit of chatting.
Me too. Awesome. No, and you're welcome back on anytime. So awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. We've come to the end. So, well, if there's nothing else, we'll leave it right there. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Overtime the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. You can find us on our Instagram at Overtime the Podcast, at Kinda Average Watches, or flick me an email on overtimethepod@gmail.com. I appreciate your support and value your feedback. If you have any questions, suggestions, or topics that you would like the podcast to cover in the future, please hit us up. Until next time.